How's it going? How's it going? I had made a previous video about my first night in Sing Sing prison, but that video it was titled "Entering." I think it was called "Entering Prison," but that was really my first night in the general population. So I'll explain my actual first night in prison, because when you go into prison for the first 2 or 3 days, you're usually held inside of a cell until you're cleared by a sergeant. You meet with a sergeant, and he'll go over to make sure you have security clearance to be in the general population. He'll check to see if you're medically fit. He'll check to see if you have any enemies in the prison. He'll check to see if there's any reason you can't be in the general population. So, for the first few days that you enter a maximum security prison, you're usually held somewhere until you enter the general population. So I told some stories about when I entered the general population as my first day in prison. But in reality, my first day in prison was when I was put into this area where they hold you for clearance. So I'll explain what happened there. I was transferred from Rikers Island Jail, where I had spent about 3 years, and sent to Sing Sing. And when I got to Sing Sing, actually, I'll say this: before I left for Sing Sing, my buddy came to visit me on Rikers Island, and he bought me about 10 grams of some hydro weed, some really good marijuana. And so what I did was, after he brought me that weed, they put me on the draft to move to prison. So I had all this weed on me. So I'm not going to lose it. So what I do is I put it in a rubber glove, tie it up, then put it in another rubber glove and seal it up into a little ball, and then put some Vaseline on it, and you stuff it up in there in your ass. So this way you could take it on the move with you. And so when I got to Sing Sing, I had 10 grams of weed on me. Really good hydroponic weed too, like the best of the best. And I get to Sing Sing, and I go through their normal routine, and they put me in a cell in a place called Five Building. Five Building is where they put you when you first come in. See, Sing Sing has several blocks. They have A block, B block, C block, which is like an honor block, and they have Five Building which is part of reception. And they bring me in, they put me in reception, and in these, they're not cells. There's doors. So you go into it's still called the cell. You go into the cell and the door shuts, and there's a little window in the door that's plexiglass. It doesn't open, right? And so you can't really see anything. You're just locked in this room. The feelings trying to remember the feeling I had the first time I was locked in this room and the door shut, and I knew I had 12 and a half to 25 years to serve, was very nerve wracking. Uh, but this, it's beyond words. But this story isn't really about the feelings, but it's about what transpired when I first went in. Now, sometimes I've said in some of my videos that people don't go out of their way to really fuck with you when you go to prison, like in the movies, but it does happen. You can get tested. And I was tested as soon as I went in. Within the first, excuse me, within the first or second day, I was tested. Were they looking for me still? That's just in the background. So what happened was, I had that weed on me, and I knew the guy in the room next to me. They put me in the room. I knew the guy in the room next to me because he came with me from Rikers Island. So I send him a little kite. A kite is what we call a note, right? And so the way I had to get him the note is what you call fishing, right? And so what I did was I wrote a little note. I said, "Listen, I have a little weed. If you want to smoke a joint, I'll send you some." And then I ripped a piece of my bed sheet and tied the note to the bed sheet and flung it over to him in the room next to me. There's a little gap underneath the door, just about 2 inches, not even. And I slid the note under there and swung it over to him. I tapped on the wall. I said, "Yo, you got a note coming." And so he sends me a note back. Definitely send me a joint. Right. So I roll the guy a joint, And it's unfortunate, but you don't have rolling papers in there. So you use Bible paper. They give you a little Bible and you rip out a page out of the Bible. It's one of those little pocket Bibles, and the papers are really thin, almost like rolling paper. And so you do what you got to do. So I rip a little Bible paper out, I roll in the joint, and I send him the joint. And he's good, he's happy. But what happens is there's rooms across from my rooms. So if you look out that little window, you're looking at a row of rooms there. And there was another prisoner across the hall who saw the move. He saw me send the guy the kite. He saw me send him the weed. He may not have been too sure of what it was, but then there was the smell of weed in the air afterwards. I don't know that yet. I don't know that yet. But there's a prisoner out on the company who's the porter, and he sweeps and mops the floors. And about an hour later, he brings me a note, right? So I open up the note, and it's from this young black kid. And he's like, yo, I saw the move you made. He wrote a note. He's like, yo, I saw the move you made, and you need to send some of that weed over here for me and my boys, right? So I tell the porter, hold on a minute. I write him a note back. I don't even know you. Who do you think you are? Whatever. I don't remember what I wrote. It's 27 years ago. But I basically told him that, like, who do you think you are? I'm not sending you anything. And I tell the porter, bring him back that. Right? So the porter brings him back the note. About 20 minutes later, the porter comes to me with another note. I said, yo, I'm not even taking that note. Tell him he's not getting anything. And that's it. Right? So all of a sudden, I hear the kid shouting out to his boys down the hallway that he's going to get me when the doors open, right? Because we're locked in for 2 or 3 days until the sergeant clears us. Remember, I'm in the reception building. That's what happens when you first go into a maximum security prison. They put you in the reception building for 2 or 3 days until the sergeant clears you, and then you go out into the general population, right? So the kid starts yelling down the hall. So I'm like, this is all I need. You know what I mean? But I don't even know what this kid looks like because he's behind the door. All I hear is his voice shouting out to his friends, and whatever. I leave it at that. The sergeant actually calls us that afternoon, and we get cleared. Everyone on the company gets cleared. So that means we're going to be coming out of the rooms within the next 24 to 48 hours, right? And so I'm like, this is the last thing I need. I'm just coming into prison. I'm not there 1 or 2 days. And I already got some young kid across the hall who wants to start a beef with me because I didn't send him no weed. You know what I mean? And so, but the kid's making a drastic mistake because at the time, I'm 27 years old. I'm in tremendous physical condition. I'm in great shape. And not to sound like a tough guy, because I'm a very humble guy, but I love to fight. Like, I enjoyed fighting my entire life. I grew up in a town where there was 30 bars, and the entire town was Irish and Italian, and we would go out drinking, and in the summertime, all the out-of-towners would come, and we would kick the shit out of all the out-of-towners. We would go to the bar to fight every night with men, you know what I mean? And then in the wintertime, when all the out-of-towners left, we would beat up each other. I mean, I grew up fighting. I enjoyed fighting. I loved to box. I loved to wrestle. I was always a very physical kid, you know what I mean? And so I guess this guy's just looking at me as like I'm probably just a little white boy from Long Island, but I actually thrive off of fighting. I mean, it's something that's exciting to me. I don't want it because I'm in prison. I don't need the trouble. I don't want to get sent to the box. You know what I mean? Especially just walking into the joint and I don't even really know anyone. But this kid is giving me a test. You know what I mean? He thinks he's going to take something from me, or he thinks he's going to force something off of me. This is why it's important to stay away from drugs inside a prison to begin with, because they always bring problems. But I had some weed on me. I had some drugs on me. This kid's trying to put pressure on me. He's trying to put pressure on the wrong one, but he doesn't know that yet. So the next day, I'm ready. I mean, I got my sneakers tied. I'm ready. I know they're giving us the message. The sergeant cleared us, and we're all going to come out for lunch. So I know lunchtime, the door's open, and I'm going to come out, and I'm going to deal with this kid right away. And I'm expecting him to come after me right away from all the shit he was talking to his boys. So as soon as the door's open, it's lunchtime. As soon as the door's open, he's right across from me, right? And I see him looking at me when the door goes open. I don't wait. I charge him right away, and I just start pounding on him. I mean, first of all, before I even get to the fight, when the door opens, the kid is 120 pounds soaking wet. He's a young little black kid, about 120 pounds, with his pants, his shoes untied, a big mouth and nothing to back it up. So I run right across the hall and I start pounding him out. And as I'm pounding him out, I'm making sure his boys don't come jump me because I'm ready for it. But what happened was they saw the beating he was getting. Usually people don't realize a street fight lasts 20, 30 seconds. You know what I mean? So I run, I crack him in the face. He goes against the wall. I pick him up, slam him, start beating him up. The cops get there within, 30, 40 seconds. But by that time, the kid is a mess. He's a complete mess. And that was my introduction into the first day in prison. So you can be tested. When you come out of the prison, you can be tested. After that, I was sent to A Block. And I told the story about what it was like in one of my other videos when I went to A Block. My first night in A Block, I saw a guy murdered very close to me. You know what I mean? So my first week in there was pretty intense. But when you get involved in the drug game, you'll get people that want to test you, So from that point on, they learned right from the beginning that I would fight and that I would defend myself and that I would stand up for myself. And that's something that you have to be known for inside a prison, that you will stand up for yourself. I'm not saying everyone gets tested, but you will get tested, and you can get tested here and there. And so that was one of the first tests I had when I went in there, a guy trying to put pressure on me, and he caught a beating for it.